Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Graham here from Crestron, and today I'm going to take you through the Crestron XiO Cloud and how you can set up a trial of the service. So we offer you a 30-day full-featured trial on the XiO Cloud. The XiO Cloud is hosted in the Microsoft Azure IoT Hub, and this is available for up to 10 rooms. So we now have a room-based licensing, so you can add your Crestron Flex system in there, along with your touch panel, along with your scheduling panel outside the room. Maybe you have wireless content sharing with Air Media, and maybe the occupancy sensor. So all these are classified as a device room license. So everything can be in the room, and you just pay a simple fee per month. And then that's based on, do you want just the setup and provisioning of the device, or do you want the ability to have support on things like remote control, which I'll show you, and then also API access. So if you want to take the data out of XiO and bring it into your own platform, that's available. So to sign up for the trial, we simply go for this link, and I'll put that in the description below. But we simply just put in our details, and we type these in, and our phone number, and we put in our email address. So once we have put in our details, we accept that I'm part of the company I am representing, and I have read the terms and conditions and the privacy policy, etc. and here. So all I need to do now is hit submit. So we have submitted our request now, and so once that gets approved, we'll be able to then have our login details and sign up, and be able to log in for the first time. Within a few minutes, you'll receive an email from noreply@crestron.io, and this is your welcome message. Sometimes this may be caught up in your spam or junk filter, so please check there for the message. I like to use a private browser, purely because this will then ensure that no other Office 365 services are logging in. So we can sign in, and we'll put in our username. And we'll put in my password. Remember, this is a temporary password, so I'll be asked to change this. So we'll put in our new password that we want to set. And we'll just complete some extra Azure identity requirements. You're able to have Azure Active Directory sign-in, so you can have SSO, just so we've got some extra information. So our account is secure. If we need to recover it, we're able to do that. So now we're able to sign in and see our XiO tenant. And once this is signed in, we'll see that we will have actually nothing set up. So to start adding details to your XiO tenant, you need the serial number and MAC address. They're the two key elements that will register a device. And here's some pop-up messages of new features that happen and are added. So we can now retrieve log files from devices. So rather than having to go to a device now and get the log files, this is now available to be retrieved from XiO Cloud. On this homepage, you're able to see a step-by-step guide to get going and how to create things. So what we recommend is you set up a tree structure, because then you can see a global view. And to do that, we simply just go to the top here, and we can add a group. So I like to call this usually global. So if you think of a global organization, maybe this is the worldwide view, and then under global you may have your different regions. So let's have let's say North America, and then we may have EMEA, so Europe, Middle East and Africa. Again, depending on how your company regions are set up, you would define that, because again you can give people different permissions to different levels on these trees here. So, and then we'll just finally create an APAC group, for example. So now we have that set up. when I go into global, I'll be able to see a full view of everything. When I go to North America, I'll be able to see all my devices in North America. Now here for EMEA, let's say this is where I'm based, I now want to start creating maybe my countries. So I could say United Kingdom, where I'm based. So I could have United Kingdom, and let's say we also have an office in France, and then another one, let's say Norway. So again, you can see the picture here, what I'm building up. You can give people different level of rights. So now here in the United Kingdom, I may say, okay, I want my London, add another one, because I might have two offices in London. So let's say I have office 1, and then maybe you have a second office in London. So I have then office 2. So now I can see the structure again. Maybe admins in London, I can give access to see both offices, or I can just someone in office 1, I give them the rights there. So now I want to add a room. So room 1. And then in room 1, I'm now able to add the equipment that I may have for there. And for example, let's add another room, a room 2, for example. So as you can see, this then pops up, this room is not licensed for this functionality. Well, what does that mean? So we can head over to settings, and this is where we configure alerts, which I'll take you through a little bit later. And account settings, I can show you here. This shows my account name. And enable remote tab, this is where we can do remote control. So view the touch panel for the center of room console. So when you're in a Microsoft Teams room, you'll be able to see that and interact with that console. If you have a scheduling panel, you'll be able to do that as well. So we'll just save changes on there. And again, API key and subscription key, these are the accounts if you're going to do any API integration work. So what we have, once you've created your tree structure, and you now need to license rooms. So you need to turn on what features you want. So by default, you have endpoint management, and then support, and this gives you alerting. And then you have workplace analytics, which obviously gives you statistics and information on everything. So now we've saved those changes. We can then go back to the rooms, and we'll be able to see that if I go to EMEA, UK, London, Office 1, Room 1, I can see that I now have no records. I don't have an error now, that's the key thing. So now we have our XiO tenant and our structure set up. What we need to do is obviously add our devices. And to do that, we need, as I mentioned before, our serial number and MAC address. Now these can be found on the outside of the box when you get your Crestron equipment. They can actually be on the shipping note as well. But if you've got the actual device itself, so here I have a Crestron Mercury, tabletop speakerphone, and obviously your 7-inch touch panel. On the back of the unit, we have the serial number, which is just down at the bottom right here. That also has a little QR code next to it. And then we have a label just further up here, which has the MAC address on it. So remember, there's 2 MAC addresses here, so make sure you take MAC address 1 and the serial number, and that's your Mercury. So that's the Crestron Flex Mercury. And then we have what we call our UC engine. So this is the plate that houses the NUC or the Windows 10 IoT device. And on the device there is a label. So you can then see from here the serial number and the MAC address. So that's nice and easy to pick off there. Again, it's either on your system or it's on the label here, the label on the box. And what we need to do then is populate them into XiO Cloud. So to add them to the cloud, we simply need to take them, and what I've done is just put them here into Notepad file. So I've typed them in, and we will add these devices. Now what we do is go to our unassociated devices. We click on Claim Device. Now we can claim multiple devices. So if you have a CSV, maybe you want to add a new floor you're adding in, you can have them in a CSV and upload them and then name them. I'm just going to do these one by one. So it's asking me for the MAC address first, and with the MAC address you must have dots. So sometimes you have semicolons in there, but in the format here we require the dots in between them. And then we add in our serial number, and this is our UC engine, and I press claim, and then it will tell you it's been claimed successfully. So again, if you are doing testing with other colleagues and things and you want to change things around, you must unclaim a device. And I'll show you that in a second. So now let's put our Mercury tabletop device in. So I'll just paste in that serial number and the MAC address. And then we hit claim. And that's been claimed successfully. So that's good. These are now ready to be seen. But they are sitting here in unassociated devices. As I mentioned, if you don't want to use it, you finish with testing, you want to pass it over to your colleague to test in their tenant for some reason, then you unclaim the device. So we don't have any licenses down here. This is just a temporary bucket. Now I know that these devices are going to go into room 1. So I simply just drag and drop, click and drag, and then move that over to the room I want it in. Same with the UC engine. So then you can give these actually some meaningful names. So if you want to say go into the Mercury and rename it, and maybe call it tabletop speakerphone. So again, other people using the portal will understand what it is and where it is, the device. And also, room 1. And the reason why I want to tell you this is when we set alerts, you'll get an alert for tabletop speakerphone. In the alert, you may not know where that is, so I would advise putting in the actual room name as well. So room 1, tabletop speakerphone. And now let's just do the same with the UC engine. Pop that in there. And again, I'd like to rename this. So again, this will be, when any alerts are sent out, it'll be a meaningful name for this user or anyone who reads the alerts. Room 1, you could call it UC engine, that's what we call it at Crestron. You could say what it is, it's a NUC. Or compute, call it what you like, whatever's going to sort of suit you and everyone else will understand in the room who's monitoring these devices. So that's now where we have the devices, and I click on room 1 and I can see both of them now, and they're offline. So I'm just going to connect these up now, and we'll wait a few minutes and they'll appear online. We now have the devices online, they're connected to the network, and they have now automatically signed into XiO Cloud. You don't have to do anything, they automatically register, they reach out to the cloud, and if they see a matching serial number and MAC address in a tenant, then they register. So we can go into the, let's say, the computer, the NUC, the UC engine. We can see what build of software it's on, what version of the Microsoft Teams room it's running, the network, for example, so we can see its IP address, DNS, etc., and what application mode the computer's running. And then finally we can see what's connected, and basically I have connected nothing. I've just done this, no peripherals have been connected, so we're not seeing any details here. And we can see the history of alerts available here. And then I can go into the Mercury device again, and I can see all the details here. I can see the occupancy sensor is showing it's occupied. That's correct, it's right in front of me here. And again, what application mode it's running in. So actually one thing I want to do is actually place a setting onto the UC engine. And let me show you why actually, and I'll show you another feature here. We have remote control. So this allows me to see the remote touch panel, the central room console, or if you had a scheduling booking panel, you'd be able to see that as well. So what I can do now is refresh this and request control, so I can see what's happening on the touch panel. And as you can see here, we've got, some people call this the Night Rider. It's searching for the UC engine. So I know that the system isn't paired, we're not using direct connect, we're going to pair it over the network. And to do that, what I need to do is go into our applications, and where we have Teams video, I can set the settings here. So this is the UC engine IP address, admin, and the default password, and I hit save. Now it's going to apply these settings down to the device. So within a few seconds, it's going to push it from the cloud down to the device, and I can see it's already ready to go. So now if I go back to my remote control, this is going to refresh in a second. Remember, it's not instant, there's a little bit of delay, but I can see that it's ready, it's signed in, or attempting to sign in, and I can even press buttons from here. So I've hit the present button, and you can see it's changed it now to stop presenting. So I've got full remote control of my Microsoft Teams room Zoom room, scheduling panel, whatever it might be, I'm able to do this. Again, I can hit more, and again, I've got complete control over the settings on the touch panel here. So great remote support assistant tool when you've got devices all over the world, for example, like you may have here. So what else can we do? We can restart the device, we can upgrade the firmware, and we can, as I mentioned, get device logs. That's a new feature that's going to be coming. So let's get and double check our firmware. So what we can do is we go back to our status page, and it will tell us we're on 1.4.94080. So again, you can double check what is the latest firmware, and you can see it's slightly newer. Now, with firmware, the best thing with Microsoft Teams rooms is allow it to sync between each other. So again, by doing extra firmware upgrades here, could actually damage the system where it's not in sync. So what we prefer to do is actually on the compute is we know this is running 8.7.2, and I know, fortunately, there is a newer version. So what I can simply do from here is enable firmware upgrade, and I want to push it to 8.8.3. Now what this does is 8.8.3, it actually includes an update for the Mercury, for the touch panel, the Huddly, whatever devices you've got connected. So it's a best way to keep all the devices in sync with the correct firmware and release notes. So I can hit update now, and it's just going to tell me I'm going to do this now. Obviously, you want to make sure the device is not in use, etc. So now it's going to go ahead and deploy this software 8.8.3. So then it'll roll that down, reboot the device, it'll come back up and report back into the XiO Cloud. So while that's doing there, again, I could have scheduled this. So instead of making this happen now, I could have scheduled this firmware upgrade. So for example, I could come into here, firmware upgrade, make sure you choose the right version of your operating system and client, and what time. So I'm based here in London, and I could have said, okay, let me do it. So again, remember, Microsoft Teams rooms reboot at 2 AM. So what I want to do is make sure I do it tonight, and maybe I want to do it just before the 2 AM reboot. So I'm going to do it at 11:49, for example. So that will apply the update, and then it will reboot, and then again at 2 AM it will do its Microsoft Teams room check and update. So that's one way to provide the firmware update. If you do use Logitech peripherals such as Meetup and Rally, again, you can schedule a firmware in here. And again, if you need to do your own reboot cycle for a certain reason, you could add that in here for the compute as well. One of the other things we have here in XiO Cloud is the ability to people count. And this would be shown here under the camera with the Huddly IQ. Now to set this, we have a limit under here, device metadata. I can say how many people are allowed in this room. So for example, I could set it for 2. So when the camera will do people counting, what it will do is alert you. You can then set alerts, which we'll touch on in a minute, is set this alert up. So if it sees 3 people, for example, it can send off an email or SMS. And how do we do that? So there's a couple of settings we can do. So we come into settings, and we can define the peripherals. Do we want to enable the people counting? So if it's on now, so that will count people. We also have the option to enable constant people counting. So when you have a meeting and you're not using the Teams room or the Zoom room, but people just go in and do a presentation. So it's able to count all of the time and then report back. So you're just doing a PowerPoint presentation, say, in the room. Make sure that there's not too many people. The camera will always be keeping an eye on the room. We're also going to have some new workplace analytics in here as well. So we'll have a dashboard, so you'll be able to see what's happened throughout the day or throughout the week, and see if the rooms are being utilised and being good or bad with people. Again, you can have some logs. So again, the logs will tell you that any changes have been made, what user did it as well. So you've got all these features here and all the history, and you can filter, etc. on there. So let's have a look at settings. So this is really, that's the end user device management side of things. We can come into the settings and let's look at our account settings. As we said before, we've got the remote tab we've enabled, and then API if you want to do any of that work. In alerts, this is where we can add alerts for certain things. So let's say we have our UC engine. I can then add some alerts to have some triggers. So I come up to the action menu and I hit add alert. Now I can choose what sort of alert I want. So in here I've got a number of alerts. Is the microphone or speaker disconnected or gets connected? People count. So let's do a people count. So there's only one option if it exceeds it, and there's a minimum of 5 minutes. And you choose what you think the severity might be. Is it critical, or is it just a warning? You just want to know what's happening. So again, I can now set that alert up for people counting. And then this one will apply to any device in my tenant. So within my settings here, within UK, London, EMEA, France, whatever location, you'll then have these alerts available to you. So let's pick, say, the Mercury tabletop, which is in the center of the room. So I go to add, and I can choose my Mercury, and I can then choose what do I want to say. Now there's a lot more features here for Mercury. We don't use them all because the Mercury is used in a number of different ways. So for example, I probably want to do the network, and if it's seen as disabled. So I want to be alerted, maybe a network drop might be okay. So maybe let's say 3 minutes. If someone has unplugged it and replugged it in, let's wait 3 minutes before we alert her. And again, this could be critical because if you can't use the central room console, then nothing's going to work. So there we have the ability now that we know the network is offline, we'll get alerted. So that's our alerts all set up and ready, and anything happens, we'll get alerts on there. The next thing is users, so I can go and create a number of users. And the nice thing here is I can go in and create other users. And what I can do is give them different levels of access. So again, I can choose my identity provider. So if I'm using single sign-on with Azure Active Directory, I've got a blog on that on how to set that up. But I can now create another user. Now I'll call it Max the dog, because he's barking in the background sometimes. Max dog. And you can give him an email address, maxthedog@woof.com, whatever it might be. And you can choose their role. So there are a number of roles, what they can do, and whether they want to get the messages. So I save that, and what I could do now is go into this user, and I can put in their proper address for what it might be. So once you have that in there, again, you can tick that box to save that. So that means alerts will go to that address. If you put in a number, then obviously they'll get SMS alerts. Now here's a nice bit on what you're able to do in terms of rights and access. So if I just expand my tree here to the different rooms and offices and devices. So I can choose what they want to see and what alerts, the minimum alert you want these people to receive. So for example, I might want to hide global, which means they don't see anything, which is a bit pointless. But you may want to make them viewer, but you may not want them to see the other sites in other continents. So you can make them hidden. And for example, you may want them to be just a viewer in the other countries, so they can actually go and see any statuses. So Max here is based in the UK, and you want to make him maybe a full admin for the UK. Or you want to make him a tech user, which means he then can't create other users, etc. So you've got add, moves, and changes. So then you can set these levels for each individual site, room, etc. So you can go nice detail down on here to what you want to give the user and what permissions they want to get. And then you just simply save changes once you've done that. And then now Max the dog can only log in and see devices in EMEA. Can't make any changes to them, but they can do adds, move, and changes on the whole of the UK. So why don't I bring up another browser and let's log in as Max. So like before, when I got my own administrator account, the user also gets a new account. So I simply open up a browser here. So I'll go to the Crestron XiO portal, and I'll have to do the same credential settings as before. So I'll have to reset my password as well. So we'll sign in, and we pop in our password, and as usual we get the message that we must change our password. Go through some steps to secure your account so you can log in again at another time. So now let's see what I can see. So remember, I can now only see UK, I can see London, and I can see the devices in the room, and I can see that online. And again, I can see its update is pending here. That will be updating the device. So now I'm a tech user here within the UK site, London. What does that mean? It means I can go into users, but I can't create them. So you see the buttons missing, so I can't add new users. I can't come in here and delete the admin. I can't change their password, for example. I can't change any alerts that they may have. So I don't have full rights to the tenant. I just have rights to the London site. So that's the sort of permissions and security settings you can put in there. One question we get asked sometimes is, could I inherit my settings from my global AD if I do Azure integration? And the answer is unfortunately not. You have to set up the rights and permissions in here today, and then that will give you the access to it. We also have a file section here where I can upload files. So this is, for example, project files. So I may want to put in a pan-tilt zoom control for my touch panel. So how I do that is I add a file and I choose what sort of project I want. So it's a user project and I want to give it a name. So let's call it PTZ to control. So if you have written one of these projects for your UC engine, I can then add a file. So I can go to my software and find what we call page flip as well as another name, and I can simply add that file. So I hit upload, and this is now going to upload to the Crestron XiO, so my tenant. No one else sees this, so anyone who's got access to my tenant can see this, and that's already gone and uploaded. Now that's been successful. So what does that mean now? I can go to my system. So again, I can hit global and I can see all my systems, and makes it easy because I can now only see the systems. So as I mentioned before, with the naming convention, as you see there in the group, I see room 1 compute. So that's handy to know that it's in room 1, but you might have room 1 in Office 1 and Office 2. So again, about the naming convention, I would encourage you to maybe call that Office 1, Room 1. So again, you know exactly what location it is, so when those alerts do come up, you are able to see them easily and understand where it's come from. Now what I can do is here in the file management, I can say user project. In here, I want to apply a file. So I can say, here's the user project, and I want to update this. And then what will happen is this file will then upload to the UC engine and provide that. So you'll get in the bottom right hand corner, you'll get that little slider, so you've got that room control icon, and in this example it will do the camera control, so any USB connected device, it'll be able to do that pan-tilt zoom and some presets. This could be another project to control your lighting and your blinds or other Crestron control as well. And one final thing, again, this is about policy and defining everything. So what I can do is, I'm up here in global, I know I've got full rights to the UK. What I can do is come into settings and I can make a global change. So I come into my settings and I can say go to London, and I could say, right, whenever I add a new Mercury tabletop speakerphone to my systems, I can ensure it's set up with the right application. So I simply tick the box. So again, this will ensure that if anyone does change things, it will always revert back. You'll notice if changes are made after around 4 minutes, XiO is taking precedence over it. So if someone does locally go into the IP address of the device and make a change of any settings, once it reads from XiO, it will overwrite it. So now it knows whenever I have a Mercury in London, it will always be in Teams video mode. So again, this is all about provisioning, making it very easy to add new systems. You configure once here, deploy many. Once they're plugged in and on the network, they come up to XiO and bring all those settings down for you. So making it very easy to manage and deploy multiple devices at scale. Thanks very much for watching. Any questions, put them in the comments below. Subscribe and hear from new videos that I produce on anything to do with Microsoft Teams rooms, Crestron. Thanks very much.